My psychotic ex threatened to end my entire family if I left. At first, I convinced myself it was just a cruel sentence spoken in anger. People say awful things during fights, and I had heard enough relationship advice to know not every word should be taken literally, but something about the way he said it made my stomach drop. There was no shouting, no shaking voice, just a quiet certainty, like he was stating a fact rather than making a threat. That was the moment I realized I wasn't in a relationship anymore. I was in captivity. I met him at a time in my life when I was vulnerable and desperate to feel chosen. He was magnetic in the beginning, intense, passionate, always focused entirely on me. He remembered tiny details, finished my sentences, and made me feel like the most important person in the room. What I didn't understand then was that obsession can look a lot like devotion when you don't know the difference. He wanted to know everything about me, my childhood, my fears, my family routines. At the time, it felt like intimacy. I didn't see that he was memorizing my life, cataloging it, storing it away. Slowly, his concern turned into monitoring. He'd question why I took so long at the grocery store, why I smiled at a coworker, why I needed to talk to my sister so often. He framed everything as worry, as love that was just a little intense. "You're all I have," he would say. "I just don't want to lose you." And I believed him. The isolation happened so gradually that I didn't notice it until my world became very small. Friends drifted away because he didn't like them. Family visits became tense because he always found reasons to argue afterward. Eventually, it felt easier to avoid conflict than to defend my independence. By the time I started thinking about leaving, fear had already replaced love. The first time I mentioned needing space, he broke down. He cried, shook, told me he couldn't survive without me. I stayed because I felt guilty. The second time, he hinted at hurting himself. I stayed because I was scared. The third time, he stopped pretending. That's when he told me what would happen if I left. He didn't threaten me directly. He didn't say he'd hurt me. Instead, he talked about my parents' daily routines, about where my younger brother worked, about how safe my family felt because they had no idea who he really was. "If you disappear," he said calmly, "they'll be the ones who suffer." My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear my own thoughts. I remember nodding, pretending I understood, pretending I accepted it. Inside, something shattered. From that moment on, every day felt like walking on glass. I monitored my words, my expressions, my tone. I became careful in ways I'd never been before. I stopped arguing. I stopped disagreeing. I became smaller and quieter because I believed compliance was the only thing keeping my family safe. At night, when he slept, I lay awake replaying everything in my head. I wondered how I had ended up here, how love had turned into fear without me noticing the exact moment it crossed that line. I wanted to tell my family so badly. Every phone call felt like torture. Hearing my mother laugh, my sister complain about work, my father talk about normal things, it all felt unreal. They had no idea how close danger felt to me every single day. The breaking point came when he started testing his power. He'd show up near my parents' house by coincidence. He'd mention running into my cousin at a store. He'd smile when he saw the panic flash across my face, like he enjoyed reminding me how trapped I was. That was when I realized something terrifying. He wasn't bluffing. He wanted me to know he could destroy my life if he chose to. I began planning my escape in silence. I stopped using my phone for anything personal. I saved evidence in hidden places. I memorized emergency numbers. I researched help late at night when he wasn't watching. Every step had to be invisible. One wrong move could cost more than just me. I reached out for help from a device he didn't know about. I spoke to professionals who understood exactly what I was dealing with. For the first time, someone believed me without questioning my fear. They helped me create a plan that protected not just me, but my family too. Leaving wasn't dramatic. There was no confrontation, no final argument. One day, I was there. The next, I was gone. When he realized I had left, the messages flooded in. Rage, desperation, apologies, threats. But this time, every word was documented. Every message strengthened the case against him. Authorities took it seriously. Protection orders were put in place. My family was warned and supported before he had any chance to act. Even after I was physically safe, my body didn't understand that the danger was over. I jumped at sounds. I checked locks repeatedly. Sleep came in short, restless bursts. Fear had rewired me, and undoing that took time. Telling my family the truth was one of the hardest conversations of my life. I expected anger, blame, questions about why I hadn't said anything sooner. Instead, they cried. They held me. They told me I was brave. Healing didn't happen all at once. Some days I still feel the echo of that fear, but I also feel something stronger now: clarity. I know what love is not. Love doesn't isolate you. Love doesn't threaten you. Love doesn't turn your family into leverage. He wanted me to believe I was powerless, that my silence was my only protection. Leaving proved that fear lies, and control only works as long as you believe it. I didn't just escape him. I took my life back. Even after I left, the fear didn't disappear. It followed me like a shadow that knew my name. Every unfamiliar car outside made my heart race. Every unknown number felt like the beginning of the end. My body stayed in survival mode long after the danger had passed, as if it didn't trust reality yet. The first few weeks were the hardest. I stayed in places he didn't know existed, moving carefully, speaking softly, constantly looking over my shoulder. I hated how alert I had become, how my mind never rested. I wasn't living anymore, I was hiding. He tried to regain control in ways that felt almost scripted. First came the apologies. Long messages about how broken he was, how he couldn't live without me, how everything he said came from fear of abandonment. Then came the blame. He accused me of ruining his life, of exaggerating, of being dramatic. When that didn't work, the threats returned subtle this time, wrapped in nostalgia and half-memories meant to confuse me. But something had changed. I wasn't alone anymore. Every message went to the people helping me. Every call attempt was logged. Every attempt to reach me only made the truth clearer to everyone involved. For the first time, his words didn't feel powerful. They felt desperate. What shocked me most was how ordinary he looked to the outside world. People who knew him casually described him as quiet, even charming. That was the hardest part to explain, how someone so calm could be so dangerous behind closed doors. How fear doesn't always come screaming. Sometimes it whispers. Telling my family everything forced me to relive moments I'd buried. I watched their faces change as they realized how much I'd carried alone. My parents struggled with guilt. My siblings struggled with anger. I struggled with shame, even though I knew it didn't belong to me. Therapy helped me put language to what I'd survived. I learned that what I thought was love had been control. That my constant anxiety had been my instincts screaming for attention. That fear can condition you to mistake compliance for safety. There were days I missed him, and that truth scared me more than anything else. Trauma bonds don't break cleanly. They linger, they confuse, they make you doubt your own memory. On those days, I had to remind myself of the facts, not the feelings. He had threatened my family. He had used fear as leverage. He had enjoyed my silence. Love doesn't do that. Slowly, life began to expand again. I laughed without checking who was listening. I slept through the night without jolting awake. I went outside without planning escape routes in my head. Small freedoms felt enormous. The legal process took time, patience, and strength I didn't know I had. But each step reclaimed a piece of myself. Each boundary enforced felt like proof that his control had an expiration date. I don't tell this story for sympathy. I tell it because fear thrives in secrecy. Because threats don't always look dramatic. Because leaving isn't always about courage. Sometimes it's about surviving long enough to find help. He wanted me to believe that staying silent was the only way to protect the people I loved. He was wrong. Walking away didn't destroy my family, it saved us. And every day I live freely now is proof that fear, no matter how convincing, does not get the final word.